Hello everyone. How is everybody doing tonight? I know I am over the moon excited tonight because this is the debut of my podcast show. I am just still in awe that something that I have been dreaming about and envisioning for my life has finally come about, and I just can't express enough thanks to Edna White and her amazing team at keeping it real on purpose, allowing me to be a co host on her incredible podcast platform. I can't even begin to describe what an honor this is for me. This is something that I have been dreaming and dreaming about for so long, and it's actually taking care of two of my biggest goals for life. One of them is to be a global motivational speaker and empowerment person, and also to have my own podcast show. So this is again, this is the debut segment of it, and it's going to be bi-weekly each month on obviously on YouTube, Monday nights at 8 o'clock. And again, I am just so excited. I just want this to be a time of everybody feeling comfortable. I I am totally vulnerable. I am an open book, which is a great analogy for me because I am an author and we're going to be getting into that tonight. But I want to give a little bit of background into why I chose the name for my show, which is Mindful Wanderer Journeys Within. So, some of you who may have been following me on other channels and social media pages know that tourism is my life. It has been a passion, a tremendous passion of mine for since I was a little kid. And each life experience that I've had, I have been to two countries, I have been to half of the United States. I am working on getting to more countries and more parts of the US, but also too, I go on a lot of day trips. I go on local vacations. I want life experiences. I go to festivals, events, I mean, you name it. And I love sharing about them with people on my social media. And it just gives me such tremendous pleasure that I can do that. If there's some place that I have been or a restaurant that I've just really enjoyed, the first thing I want to do is go on my Facebook or some of my other channels and say, hey, you got to try out this great restaurant or you got to try out this festival. So it just brings me such great pleasure. But getting back to the name of this podcast. So, Mindful Wanderer Journeys Within. I like to tell people that we are our own inner tour guides. Now, what I mean by that is every single day when we wake up in the morning, we have our plans, we have our routines, we have a certain comfort level of what our day is going to look like. But what happens when our life is hit by those unexpected shifts? And what do we do? I mean, some shifts can be good in the beginning, but then there are ones that just literally put us in a portal that we were never ever expecting. And that happened to me 24 years ago on October 2nd in the year 2000. Now, it's not something I would have asked for, and I pray I never have to go through it again. But where I am today, what I am doing in my life, what has occurred in my life over the last decade, I am just in awe of how God, and yes, my faith is an integral part of my life and my story and my inner tour guide journey, but how God has been able to use what happened to me. And so he used it to bring good and bring some amazing, amazing opportunities into my life. So October 2nd of the year 2000, I was living in Philadelphia at the time. I was doing a program through AmeriCorps with the American Red Cross, and I had just completed an event with the fire prevention company, one of the local fire departments. And on my way home from that event, and I had a coworker of mine with me, just going through an intersection with a green light, just routine, that's what we do. And next thing I knew, I heard my coworker scream, and all I remember was seeing the grill of this giant vehicle. And then that the next thing I remember is I heard I just heard glass breaking. I smelled smoke. I felt like I didn't know what had happened. My head was hurting. Everything was hurting on me. I managed to come to and see that both airbags had deployed, but I had been rammed into by a giant SUV. And by giant, I mean, yes, it was huge. So at the time, I looked over at my coworker and she was slumped back in her seat and I didn't know if she was still alive. And then she started crying and I'm like, oh, thank God, at least she's still alive. But that accident was a shift that I had never, ever anticipated. And nobody anticipates getting hit by a car. And that accident, because of the impact and because I used to drive close to the steering wheel, I was literally slammed against, even with wearing a seatbelt, I was slammed against the door and I hit my head really, really hard. My chest got really hit and I had broken bones and permanent nerve damage, but I did end up with a traumatic brain injury. And ever since then, I was never the same. I didn't process the same. I didn't react the same. And there were feelings and things that were part of my life that just were not there. And I struggled. I struggled in every area of my life. And it was especially difficult in work situations where there was so much going on around me and my head was just like, I can't take this anymore. I had trouble with bright lights. I had trouble with people in my face. I had trouble with loud noises. I didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't always get understanding from other people either because they couldn't see it. I mean, yes, they could see that I had a cast on my hand. They could see bruises or whatever it was, but you can't see nerve damage. You can't see a brain injury. And unfortunately, because of these things that can't be seen, judgments are made at times, and not everybody is as understanding. But the only one who really counted at that point was God, and He knew exactly what happened, and He had bigger plans for me. So, hence the shift, the unexpected shift in my life at that point led me to a time where I was starting to think about working somehow from home, but I didn't know how that was going to be. I got back into my writing, which was something that had been part of my life since I was born, well, since I was a little kid. And I was in the hospital in and out throughout my childhood with asthma. And writing helped me cope at that time. Writing helped me cope with a childhood disease that was so bad and misunderstood. And now here I was again in my 30s, not sure what to do. And it just took so much out of me. And literally, I was like, okay, what do I do? Well, I did go back to school and got a graduate degree. It wasn't easy for me because I had to relearn a lot of things. I have never been able to write legibly again with my right hand. So thank God I'm able to type. And again, just I at times would have trouble communicating, understanding, processing. So I have had 2 decades of learning to readjust and realign my life. But my writing just kept calling to me and calling to me. So one day, I just happened to be on my social media and I saw there was a woman looking for someone to write a chapter compilation in a compilation to do with a topic that I held very dear to my heart and that I will talk about at a future podcast session. But it just called out to me to write and I reached out to her and it led to me becoming a published author in 2016. And seeing my name in print and seeing something that I wrote, that I created, to be out there and being read by people that I will probably never meet, but knowing that it was going to make an impact. And then that led me to meeting my publisher, my international publisher, who I was able to get my solo book. And I know it's backwards, but Night Shift with a K. And I use my maiden name, LaVoie, which is my author name, Suzanne LaVoie. So I just, like, to see something like this. Now, the night of the accident, everything was broken. I was broken. My coworker had a bunch of injuries. My car, I don't even want to think about what that looked like when I had to go back the next day and get my stuff out of the car. It looked like a horseshoe. I mean, even the guy at the junkyard had said, "How did you even manage to walk away from this?" So I was definitely being looked over, and so was my coworker. I mean, yes, I have lifetime residuals, but at least I'm on the right side of the grass. So, but this arose from something that was so tragic and so horrible. And yes, there were things taken from me that night, but what I gained, because I was open to another shift. I didn't like the shift, and to this day, I still struggle. I still wonder if the person who hit me ever thinks about whether I'm okay. But writing has allowed me to process a lot. And when you're writing a book, I can say whatever I want. I can be whoever I want. I can process things in my own way. Nobody is standing over me like, "Why are you thinking this?" Or "Why are you saying it this way?" Or "What's wrong with you?" I mean, these are all things that I had heard throughout my lifetime since. And it was very, very difficult. But then I had very wonderful, supportive people. I mean, getting into the writing world, getting into the editing world, which the writing led me to become an editor and a proofreader, a ghostwriter, an entrepreneur. I mean, you name it. So, but all of this came because I had to be open. I had to embrace the shift. And I have had book signings, and when I sell a book to someone who wants one, if they ask me to sign it, I will always write, "Embrace the shift." Because now this book is the first of a series, and I was supposed to have, this one came out in 2017, and the other one, I was supposed to have the other one quite a while ago, but then life happened, the pandemic. And unfortunately, after the pandemic, my brain injury was exacerbated, and I lost some ability to write and read for quite a while. But thank God now it's back pretty much. But my creative juices have just exploded and expanded. And I am just so grateful for that. But I want to read something from this book that I wrote in line of this, because it captures that essence of, when an unexpected event tears apart our lives, there is a shift in what we have always held true. Nothing is familiar. We cling desperately to anything that reminds us of the life we once knew, even if it was full of disappointment and disillusionment. Fear takes over, and we become paralyzed in our own bodies, even though we are still able to walk. But when you embrace the shift, you can decide to go with the shift and see where it led. And it can lead you to a new purpose. This is one of my purposes now, to do this podcast, to write more books, to put an inspirational post on social media, to do the new digital marketing position that I'm doing, to go out there and have more life experiences, to blog about my travel and my tourism adventures. I have many purposes. We all have many purposes. We all have many paths to take. When you're a tour guide, sometimes the tour guide knows about things that we may not know about. And that's the thing. We can discover so much when we are open. And even though it's something that is unwelcome at times, if we're open to the fact that it may be a detour that could ultimately lead us to an even better destination. I'm not, again, I'm not thankful for what happened to me or to my coworker or even the one who hit me, but what my life is like today, I don't know if it would have come about if it hadn't been for the fact that everything else was stripped away and I was open to this canvas of being able to write and where it led me. So that is my message tonight, my encouragement, that if you're going through a really difficult challenge, if something has shifted that you weren't expecting, if you're going through a difficulty that just seems insurmountable, just ask, be open to, there could be something out there, and take the detour. Take the detour and see where it leads. You just never know what could be on the other side. I never dreamt that a lot of this would be on the other side. But I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be alive and to share this message. And I can't wait to keep having further sessions. But again, thank you. And I look forward to being with you on October 28th. That will be the next one. And that's going to be a lot of fun that night. So thank you. And I just love the fact that I'm here and for this opportunity. All right. Have a great night. And I will see you in 2 weeks.